Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world that teaches us from an early age to strive, to control, to push against life until it bends to our will. We are told that success is the result of constant effort, that security is found in tightening our grip. Yet beneath this familiar story lies another truth, a truth that reveals itself when we dare to loosen our hold. It is in those moments when we step back, when we release the need to force every outcome, that life often meets us with its most unexpected gifts. Today, I want to take you into that quiet space where letting go becomes not a loss, but an opening where surrender itself becomes the ground from which miracles arise. There is an instinct in us that clings to control as if it were the only thread keeping us from unraveling. We plan, we organize, we anticipate every possible scenario. On the surface, it looks like responsibility, discipline, or foresight. But beneath it, if we are honest, lies something more primal: fear. Fear of being caught unprepared, fear of stepping into chaos, fear of standing in front of life without a shield. Control becomes our armor, not because the world is always hostile, but because the unknown terrifies us. Fear is the shadow that walks beside control. It is rarely obvious. It hides beneath rational explanations and well-crafted routines. A person may tell themselves they are simply being careful, strategic, or sensible, yet deep down, the grip comes from an anxiety that life might slip out of their hands if they loosen it even for a moment. In this way, control is less about shaping life and more about protecting ourselves from its unpredictability. We learn this early. A child discovers that when they can influence their surroundings even in small ways, they feel safer. They may cling to certain rituals, predictable patterns, or familiar objects. Over time, these small acts of control become habits. As we grow older, the habit grows with us, evolving into more sophisticated methods of steering life. We choose carefully, plan obsessively, and sometimes even limit our dreams to what feels manageable. But the original driver has not changed. Beneath the layers of maturity, it is still fear that moves the hand. The fear is not always conscious. It can be subtle, like a background hum we forget is there. It whispers that we are not strong enough to face the full weight of uncertainty, that we must anticipate every outcome to survive. This is why control can feel so exhausting. We are not only trying to shape events, we are also trying to silence the quiet dread that something will go wrong if we stop. In that sense, control is less an expression of confidence and more an admission that we don't trust ourselves or life to carry us through the unknown. When control is rooted in fear, it becomes rigid. We cling to familiar structures even when they no longer serve us, because letting go feels like stepping into darkness. We resist change, not because change is always bad, but because change threatens the illusion of safety. We even try to control people, their reactions, their choices, their perceptions of us, as though if we could just manage their behavior, our own world would be more stable. This rarely works, yet the fear beneath it convinces us to try again and again. There is also a deeper psychological element at play. Fear of losing control often comes from unhealed experiences where we felt powerless. A betrayal, a sudden loss, a childhood marked by instability. Such moments leave an imprint. Without realizing it, we begin building a fortress of control around ourselves. This fortress is meant to keep danger out, but it also keeps life out. The very walls that protect us from harm can also block the flow of new possibilities. Control can even extend inward into our own emotions. We try to manage what we feel, to regulate every inner movement so that nothing unpredictable rises to the surface. We label some feelings as unacceptable and push them down. But repression is itself a form of control born from fear of what will happen if the truth of our inner life is revealed. We become strangers to our own depths, guarding against a flood we imagine will overwhelm us. Yet the more we attempt to control, the more fragile we become, because fear never really goes away when you feed it with control. It only hides for a while. Every time life delivers something outside our plan, the fear resurfaces, sometimes stronger than before. We may respond by tightening our grip even more, creating a cycle that keeps us trapped. At its core, this relationship between fear and control is a paradox. We seek control to feel safe, yet the safety is temporary because it depends on the impossible making life conform to our will. Life is not static. It shifts, it evolves, it moves in directions that cannot be predicted. The more we resist this truth, the more our fear grows. And the more our fear grows, the more we feel the need to control. It is a dance between two partners, one invisible, one in plain sight, and it can continue for a lifetime unless we learn to see the fear for what it is. When we begin to notice the moments we cling most tightly, we often find that they are the moments we feel most vulnerable. The fear of losing what matters most, the fear of being hurt again, the fear of stepping into a reality we cannot map, these are the hidden engines that drive our urge to control. To understand this is to see that control is not truly about power over life, but about shielding ourselves from the raw and unpredictable nature of existence. There is a rhythm beneath the surface of our existence, a quiet pulse that guides the unfolding of events with a wisdom older than our minds. We often believe that intelligence belongs solely to the human mind, that our reason, our planning, and our strategies are the highest forms of knowing. But there is another kind of intelligence, one that does not operate through calculation, yet somehow arranges the tapestry of life in ways more intricate and precise than any human plan. This deeper intelligence moves through the turning of seasons, the instinct of animals, the migration of birds who have never seen their destination, yet find it with unfailing accuracy. It is the force that shapes a child in the womb without conscious effort, the same force that calls the seed upward toward the light without telling it what the light is. It is present in the tides, in the cycles of the moon, in the regeneration of forests after fire. There is no human hand orchestrating these movements, yet they occur with a kind of perfection that humbles the intellect. In our own lives, this intelligence is just as present, though we often overlook it. We imagine that our progress comes only from deliberate action, but so often it is the unexpected encounter, the unplanned detour, the sudden moment of insight that alters our course in the most meaningful ways. A person might be delayed by a missed train, only to meet someone who changes the entire trajectory of their life. Another might face the loss of something they thought essential, only to discover it was the very space they needed for something greater to arrive. These are not accidents in the shallow sense of the word. They are expressions of a deeper order working beyond our immediate understanding. Sometimes this intelligence communicates in whispers. It comes as a quiet knowing that we cannot justify logically, yet feels truer than the loudest arguments in our mind. It might appear as a dream that lingers with strange vividness, a symbol that seems to follow us, or a feeling that a certain path is calling even when it makes no sense on paper. We dismiss such experiences as coincidence or imagination, but in doing so, we turn away from a form of guidance that has been with humanity for as long as we have walked the earth. There is a reason that ancient cultures sought signs in the movements of nature, in the patterns of the stars, in the flight of birds. They understood that life speaks in many languages, not just in the linear logic we favor today. This is not to say that every event is a coded message waiting to be deciphered, but rather that life has an underlying coherence, a way of weaving meaning through what appears at first to be chaos. We often struggle to trust this intelligence because it does not consult us before moving. It does not ask for permission to change our plans, and it does not always align with our preferences. A relationship ends when we most want it to stay. A job opportunity vanishes just as we are ready to seize it. In such moments, we see only the loss, the disruption. Yet with time, many of these experiences reveal themselves to have been necessary clearing space, redirecting us, or sparing us from paths that would have led to stagnation or harm. The mind seeks to predict and control, but this deeper intelligence works in patterns too vast for us to see from within them. Like a traveler walking through a forest, we see only a few steps ahead, while life itself sees the whole landscape, the rivers, the mountains, the unseen cliffs. What may seem like a detour to us may be the only safe passage forward. This intelligence is not separate from us. It moves through us as intuition, as creative inspiration, as the sudden courage to make a change we have avoided for years. It lives in the moments when we act from a place that feels larger than our own willpower, when something in us rises to meet a challenge, and we later wonder how we did it. It is not something we need to earn or summon. It is always here, as much a part of us as our heartbeat. To recognize it requires a different kind of listening. It asks us to pay attention not just to the obvious, but to the subtle, to the patterns that repeat, the feelings that persist, the doors that open with surprising ease, and the ones that remain closed no matter how hard we push. It asks us to soften our grip on the belief that we alone are the architects of our lives, and to consider that we are also participants in something larger, something that sees farther and deeper than we can. When we begin to sense this, the world changes. The random becomes connected. The ordinary becomes alive with quiet meaning, and we start to see that beneath the surface of every moment, life is moving with an intelligence far greater than our own. There is a certain impatience in the human heart. We plant the seed and then keep digging in the soil to see if it has sprouted. We map out a journey and then try to rush the road beneath our feet. We want the flower to bloom before its season, the fruit to ripen before its time. Yet the deeper rhythms of life cannot be hurried. The natural process has its own pace, one shaped by forces we cannot fully command. To trust it is to understand that life unfolds in accordance with its own wisdom, not our timetables. Nature offers countless reminders of this truth. The caterpillar does not become a butterfly in a single night. It must endure the darkness of the cocoon, a place where its old form dissolves before the new one can emerge. The river does not carve the canyon in a day. It wears away the stone slowly, almost imperceptibly, until the shape is revealed. In the same way, our own transformation takes time, and each stage serves a purpose, even when we cannot yet see it. Impatience often comes from the fear that if we are not moving fast enough, we are falling behind, or that if something takes too long, it will never happen at all. But growth is not always visible. There are seasons in life when it seems nothing is changing, when all our efforts appear to be in vain, yet beneath the surface, unseen shifts are taking place. Roots are growing deeper, foundations are strengthening. These are the quiet preparations that allow the visible changes to come later, stronger and more enduring than they would have been if forced too soon. Trusting the natural process requires humility. It means accepting that we are not the sole authors of our story. We participate, we make choices, we take action, but there is also a larger movement at work, shaping our path in ways we cannot fully predict or control. Just as a farmer cannot command the rain or dictate the exact day a crop will ripen, we cannot force certain parts of life to unfold on our schedule. We can only create the right conditions, plant, water, tend, and allow the process to do the rest. There are moments when this trust is tested. We may be in the middle of a personal transition, having let go of an old chapter but not yet stepped into the new one. This in-between space can feel uncomfortable, even unbearable. Our minds urge us to rush forward, to find answers, to make things certain again. But it is often in these in-between spaces that the deepest changes are taking place. Just as winter prepares the way for spring, these pauses prepare us for the next stage of our journey. The natural process also includes moments of letting go. Leaves fall from the tree not because they are pushed away, but because their time has ended and the tree is ready for rest before new growth begins. In our own lives, there are people, roles, and situations that must fall away to make space for what is to come. Holding on too tightly can stall our growth, while releasing what no longer belongs allows the next season to arrive in its fullness. To trust this process is not to be passive. It is to act in harmony with the rhythm of life rather than against it. A sailor adjusts their sails to the wind instead of demanding the wind blow in a certain direction. In the same way, we learn to respond to the conditions before us, adapting and moving with the flow rather than exhausting ourselves in resistance. Trust deepens when we reflect on the times in our past when life unfolded in ways we did not expect. Yet looking back, we can see how perfectly the pieces fit together. What once felt like a delay was actually preparation. What once seemed like an ending was the necessary threshold for a new beginning. These memories become proof that the process can be trusted, even when the present feels uncertain. There is a quiet power in aligning ourselves with this rhythm. It softens our urgency and allows us to be more present with what is here now. Instead of constantly straining toward the next moment, we begin to inhabit this one more fully. We notice the subtler changes, the small signs of growth, the delicate shifts that signal progress even when it is not dramatic. The natural process does not rush, but it never fails to move forward. Whether we see it or not, whether we understand it or not, it carries us toward what we are becoming. To trust it is to live with the faith that nothing in our journey is wasted, that even in stillness, even in waiting, life is working on our behalf in ways far beyond our sight. Letting go is often misunderstood. Many imagine it as a kind of resignation, a quiet surrender to whatever happens, as though it were the choice of someone too tired or defeated to keep trying. But true letting go is not apathy. It is not the absence of effort, nor is it the decision to drift without direction. Rather, it is an act of alignment, a conscious decision to release the grip of control over outcomes, while still engaging fully with the present moment. Action and attachment are not the same thing. We can take action without fastening ourselves to a specific result. We can work towards something with focus and dedication, and still leave space for life to move in its own way. This is what letting go truly means: to act from clarity, not desperation, to give our best without binding ourselves to how things must unfold. Imagine a skilled archer drawing the bow. They steady their breath, focus on the target, and release the arrow. In that moment of release, their part in the process is complete. The arrow will fly according to the skill they have cultivated, the conditions of the air, and forces beyond their control. The archer does not run after the arrow to push it toward the target. They act with precision and let the rest belong to the unfolding of events. In our lives, letting go works in much the same way. We prepare, we act, we offer our energy, and then we step back. This stepping back is not weakness, it is trust. It acknowledges that there are factors, patterns, and timings we cannot command. The soil and the seed both require our care, but they also require our patience. Pulling at the stem will not make the flower bloom faster. It will only damage what is growing. Letting go is also an act of respect toward the deeper intelligence of life. When we refuse to let go, we imply that we alone know the exact way things must be. We close ourselves off to possibilities that may be far better than our original plans. By contrast, when we loosen our grip, we remain available to subtle shifts, to opportunities we could not have imagined, to solutions that arise from beyond the narrow borders of our expectations. This is not to say that letting go is easy. It asks us to loosen the bond between our identity and the outcome we are chasing. So much of our attachment comes from the belief that we will only be whole, or safe, or worthy once a certain thing happens. When that belief drives us, our actions are colored by fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of what we will be if the goal is not achieved. Letting go is the choice to act without that fear holding the reins. Sometimes letting go means releasing our timeline. We may still work toward the same vision, but without demanding it arrive on our schedule. Other times, it means setting down a plan entirely because it no longer feels alive, even if we have invested much into it. This can feel like a death of sorts, the ending of what we thought was certain. Yet endings create the space for beginnings. To cling to what has already passed its time is to block what wants to arrive. Letting go also changes the quality of our actions. When we act from a place of control, our movements are tense and narrow. We are driven more by avoidance of failure than by the joy of creation. But when we act from a place of trust, our work carries a different energy, one that others can feel. It is lighter, more open, more receptive. We still give our full effort, but it is infused with presence rather than strain. It is in this state that life often responds most vividly. When we are not suffocating a process with our demands, there is room for it to breathe. Just as a conversation flows best when we are not forcing the other person to say what we want to hear, life unfolds most beautifully when we allow it to speak in its own voice. The paradox is that letting go can actually make our actions more powerful. Without the weight of rigid expectations, we can respond more fluidly to what arises. If one path closes, we can see another opening without being blinded by disappointment. We become like the dancer who knows the choreography, but is also free to improvise when the music shifts. In this way, letting go is not the end of effort, it is the transformation of effort. It is the willingness to act with devotion while releasing the illusion that we can dictate every outcome. It is moving forward with open hands, ready to give and ready to receive, without needing to clutch at what cannot be held. There is a threshold between what we can control and what lies beyond our reach. We spend much of our lives pushing against that threshold, trying to expand it, convinced that if we just try harder, plan better, or hold on tighter, we can shape everything to our will. Yet some of the most extraordinary moments in life arrive not when we tighten our grip, but when we finally loosen it. It is in surrender that the ground becomes fertile for miracles. Surrender is often misunderstood as defeat, as if to yield were to give up on the dream. But surrender is not abandonment. It is the conscious choice to step aside from the need to dictate every detail, and in doing so, to allow life's larger intelligence to participate in the creation of our path. It is the acknowledgement that our vision, however clear, may not yet contain the full truth of what is possible. There is a certain humility in this. To surrender is to admit that there are forces at play. We do not fully understand forces that weave patterns far more intricate than the ones our minds can map. Like the currents of the ocean, they are invisible yet undeniable, carrying us toward places we could never reach by willpower alone. When we stop fighting those currents, we discover they often lead us somewhere even better than the destination we had in mind. Miracles rarely arrive on schedules. They are not summoned by deadlines or forced by strategy. More often, they slip quietly into our lives when the conditions are right, much like the way a seed sprouts only when the soil, temperature, and light are in harmony. We cannot shout the seed into growth. We can only nurture it and trust the unseen work taking place beneath the surface. Surrender creates the space for that unseen work to flourish. In surrender, something shifts inside us. The anxious energy that comes from trying to control every outcome begins to dissolve, and in its place grows a calm openness. This openness becomes an invitation. It is as though life senses the space we have made and responds by filling it with opportunities, connections, and moments of grace that we could never have orchestrated ourselves. There is a subtle but powerful difference between striving and allowing. Striving is fueled by the belief that nothing will happen unless we force it into being. Allowing comes from the recognition that life is already in motion, and our role is to align with its movement. This does not mean we do nothing. It means we act in harmony with what is unfolding, rather than in opposition to it. In this state, our actions feel lighter, yet they somehow yield greater results. Often, miracles appear disguised as detours. What feels like a loss, a delay, or even a failure can later reveal itself as the very thing that cleared the way for something greater. Surrender does not erase pain or uncertainty, but it softens our resistance to them. It allows us to walk through difficulty with a trust that something meaningful is forming, even if we cannot yet see its shape. Surrender also deepens our relationship with the unknown. We begin to see that the unknown is not an empty void to be feared, but a field of possibility. When we stop demanding that the future match our current vision, we give it permission to exceed it. Many of the most life-changing experiences love found unexpectedly, a sudden calling toward a new path, a chance meeting that alters our destiny happen because we were willing to let go of the script we had been holding. This willingness does not come easily. It often arrives after we have exhausted ourselves in trying to control what cannot be controlled. But when we finally release the need to force our lives into a specific shape, we enter into a kind of partnership with life itself. We act, we listen, we respond, and life, in turn, meets us with moments we could never have created alone. The miracle is not always grand or dramatic. Sometimes it is subtle, a new clarity, a gentle turning of the heart, an unexpected solution to a problem we had struggled with for years. Other times, it is something that shifts the entire course of our existence. In both cases, it comes with a sense of inevitability, as though it had been waiting all along for us to make room for it. Surrender is the key that unlocks this door. It is the quiet but powerful act of trusting that the unseen is not working against us, but for us. When we place our faith in that, miracles are no longer rare events. They become the natural outcome of living in harmony with the flow of life. We do not summon miracles by clinging to life with rigid hands. We invite them when we make space, when we open the door to the unknown and trust that something beyond our sight is working on our behalf. Surrender is not the absence of action, but the presence of trust, a trust that life is wiser, broader, and more generous than we can imagine. And when we live from that trust, we find that the extraordinary was never far away. It was always waiting, just beyond the edges of our control, ready to step in the moment we let it.